All right, so what does it mean for you tonight having all these wonderful politicians, artists, and visionaries as part of the Sierraclub celebration?
It means so much to have folks here celebrating with us at the Sierraclub and for the Sierraclub getting to celebrate these incredible people. You know, we're at a moment of such challenge but also such opportunity, and it's just so exciting to see the heroes, the trailblazers that we're celebrating today, that are leading the way to showing us what is possible and how we create a better world for our children, for our future. So.
You know, Miss Nancy Pelosi, I'm very excited.
Me too.
I mean, politicians have avoided any environmental issues like the plague. What was it about her that you think gave her the ability to like push forward legislation that no one else could even pull people together?
I take her at her word. A lot of it is her children and her grandchildren. She knows that the choices we're making today are going to shape the future for the people we love, and that her inspiration comes from a deep place that really matters.
So we're going to go back to your origin story. When did you know you would be able to merge your environmental justice feelings with filmmaking?
I started out in the entertainment industry as an 8-year-old girl when I starred in the Hollywood Christmas classic with Sam Elliott called Prancer. And that film was about a very spirited young girl that wanted to save a reindeer that she believes was Santa's. And I had the opportunity as a 9-year-old to see the power that storytelling has to shape the world and to reach millions of people and to touch people's hearts. And so as a very young person, I knew the power of storytelling and that was something that I wanted to be a part of.
And then when was the time when you transitioned to director then and telling your own story?
When I came out to Hollywood as a young adult, I was actually cast in a bunch of horror movies. I won't name them because I don't want you to watch them. But in one movie, I played a succubus that sucked the souls and blood of men. And as I gave birth to it on the basement floor of a monastery covered in buckets of goo, I realized that it was time for a career change. And so that was when I knew that I wanted to use filmmaking to tell important stories. And right around that time in 2006, I saw An Inconvenient Truth, and that was like my inciting incident where I knew that everything I had learned, and that was all about telling the story about figuring out what to do with that carbon that was going to affect and shape our world. And so for 20 years, I've made over 20 films about the environment, starting at looking at reducing our dependence on fossil fuels, and then realizing that reducing emissions wouldn't do anything about the gigaton of carbon, the teraton, actually 1,000 gigatons of carbon is our legacy load in the atmosphere, and we can't do anything about that by using paper straws or driving a Tesla. And if we actually want to stabilize our climate, we have to put that carbon back into the soil. And the way to do that is through regenerative agriculture, which is based in indigenous principles, and it's basically using, it's farming in the way that our elders and ancestors knew how to do, that actually built soil health and helped life to thrive. And that's what we need to do now in order to draw down that teraton of carbon and stabilize our climate. And we can. Anyway, that's why I made the films. I've made a film called Kisstheground, and a film called Common Grounds, and then a film that's coming out this year called Groundswell. And it's got Woody Harrelson and Demi Moore, and Common Ground had Making Soil Sexy. We had Jason Momoa and Donald Glover and Laura Dern, and we've had these incredible voices that have helped us in our storytelling to draw attention to the fact that there is a solution, and that is called biosequestration or regenerative agriculture. And that's really the story that we all need to be telling today. And that's why I'm here at the Sierraclub event, because it's about how storytelling shapes our world. And if we're telling the story of healing and regeneration, then that's the world that we're going to see.
And you hope having all these great stars behind it might inspire some youth to not only watch it, but actually they too can make their own stories.
Yes, and actually what's interesting is when Kiss the Ground came out 5 years ago or 6 years ago in 2020, we got so many emails from people saying that they or their children dropped out of college and went and started a farm or started working on a farm. And I think that people are realizing that every single person can be a part of the movement. Every single person can play a role in regenerating the earth and sequestering carbon. Did you know that the reason that the ocean is heating is because it's absorbed all that extra carbon? And when we take that carbon and put that back in the ground, that can be released from the oceans. I mean, storing carbon in soil affects every single thing that we do. And so I'm here beating the bandwagon for saving and healing our soil.
You're directing a film.
I am.
What is your process of trying to capture all the important issues through character?
Honestly, it's a documentary, and through documentary, we're working with people behind the screen and that are going to be in front of the screen that bring a lot of character, not just from within themselves, but in this work we forget to stay aligned. We all get so distracted by what's going on. We're always like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And there's so many things happening. So many, honestly, really hard things that a lot of Native people, Indigenous people that are facing across the world right now, especially under this administration. And so finding ways to uplift these people, but not just make it all doomsday. We can't lose hope. And there is a lot of people doing good work. And, Indigenous people have been doing this work since before contact, right? We have been stewards of the land. It is a known statistic, which I'm so happy a lot more people are talking about it, but it's, and I keep saying it, and I'm going to keep saying it, 80% of the world's biodiversity is protected by Indigenous people, and we only take up 5% of the world's population. And so that statistic alone tells you who are at the front lines. And so to uplift, people that are doing the work on the front lines, to make sure that their stories and their experiences are being told, but also respected and represented in a beautiful way, it's important, because we can't just see everything that's happening and then lose hope and feel defeated, right? And so, the film is called Beautiful Resistance, and it's to highlight the beauty in this work. And it's, there is moments of laughter, of joy, of celebration, like why we're here tonight, right? To celebrate, incredible people doing the work. And so, I feel like through film, it's important to make people feel comfortable, make people feel heard, hold space for them. And, it's a learning process. Telling stories is a learning process for everybody, and it's a community effort. So, yeah.
And what do you think is the biggest issue facing Indigenous youth today?
The biggest issue facing Indigenous youth today, I would say, is hopelessness. The statistics of Indigenous youth are really sad. We have the highest rates of suicide because there's not a lot of resources to protect Indigenous youth. We're all seeing the loss over and over again, the loss of our land, our culture, our languages, our histories. The right histories are not being told. It's so many things, and all of that trickles down, and it is ongoing generational trauma that is passed down over and over again. And so to break a cycle, to make youth feel hopeful, to make them feel seen, to make them feel important, it's detrimental to telling stories of climate, justice, because Indigenous youth are the most impacted. And so, it's important to make sure that we're doing the work to not only incorporate them, include them, but to empower them and remind them that their stories and their experiences are just as important as the next person.
You do a lot of focus on environmental education for the youth. What inspired you to get involved with that and create a think tank for the youth?
Thank you, sir.
I think I've always had the exact same thesis. I was looking around at which problem should I try solving? There's so many. And I realized that what we actually needed was an army of people who felt like they understood what the solutions were and were energized about the fact that these problems were solvable. So I realized that I could have a greater impact multiplied by creating thousands of people with the same thesis. And I've just been trying to do that in different ways, from teaching at Berkeley to a think tank now. I've had the exact same passion the entire time.
How do you balance solving problems on a national level, which could be overwhelming sometimes, and also focusing on local community problem solving?
I always consider myself a jack of all trades, in the sense that I think I'm passionate about a little bit of all of it, and I have my foot in, perhaps too many pots. I think you should find what drives you crazy and go wild with it, right? Some people, the local scale is going to feel much more manageable to them, and they're going to feel really rooted and validated in building a community that's really deepened in one area. Some people, they want to go big. And they're like, I cannot think about a small piece of the problem. I have to think about the whole thing. And so I have some things where I'm local, and I have some places where I'm national, and some places where I'm international. But I think it's really about just finding what's important to you, what scale feels good for your life.
And what thing right now would you recommend? Because a lot of young people feel hopeless and helpless. What do you recommend for them kind of getting more engaged with this and realize there is hope?
Well, that's the work that's in front of us, right? We are relatively new as a think tank, but we are setting out to, our orient is the general public, not the policy world. And we're really trying to offer people a vision for what a better world could look like. And something that's aspirational, an environmental agenda that feels like it's going to make your life better, that you're going to find a career there that's fulfilling, that this is common sense solutions that we're all a part of, and just a culture that feels good, right? I think the environmental movement, we've done the hard work of convincing everyone that there was a problem, and now it's time to really focus on the solutions and give people. I think there's millions of people all around the world who want to throw their weight in and want something consequential to work on. And they're just kind of waiting for their marching orders because we haven't really told them how to solve this problem. So that's the work in front of us, to tell really deep stories and to really to permeate into culture new, fresh ideas that are exciting, that are energizing, and that make you want to be a part of it.
I want to go back in time. One of the things that most influenced my life was the show Roots. What was it for you to be able to tell a story that most Americans were actually not aware of or didn't know the truth, but also tell it through the lens of a character and dramatically?
It was, wow, how can I succinctly express and explain to you the significance of Roots in my life? Alex Haley and Roots gave me the life that I have, right? They paved the way for me to do that which it is I do. It was my introduction to the power of storytelling on a grand scale. Roots was my beginning, really. I was a sophomore at USC. Roots was actually my first professional audition. So as I say, I would not be here, I believe, without Alex Haley and Roots.
And speaking of roles that really affected and helped people, Geordie LaForge was the first really blind major character on a television show or a film. And how was it for you that you inspired so many people that never felt they could see themselves on the screen?
I consider that Geordie represented for people with physical challenges the same way that Nichelle Nichols represented for me as I was growing up a fan of Star Trek. I am constantly encountering people who not only became engineers, but in themselves, in their own lives, they deal with physical challenges, and Geordie was an inspiration to them, and I'm awfully damn proud of that.
And our last question, what was your reaction the first time you shot the scene where all your castmates got back together in Picard Season 3 on the original bridge? All your friends doing one more scene on the original Enterprise bridge?
That was a good day. It's a really, really, really good day.
What was your initial gut reaction when you first read the script of The Glory, which told the story, unknown story to most Americans?
Office of Freddie Fisher, and said, it's like they didn't talk to anybody before they talked to me, so I was like floored. That was it. That script was awesome, and they were inviting me to be part of it. I was like...
That amazing scene with Denzel where you confront each other, both coming from a place of pain about the experience you had. How did you work with Denzel to capture both sides of the story, but both were very prideful characters?
Well, Denzel is an awesome actor. And we didn't have any trouble getting that, none at all. I don't know, coming from both sides of it, that's the script. It's not your personal choice,
I was really moved by the scene in the car where you told the story of the lynching. Mm-hmm. How did you approach that, telling such a painful story that, through character's lens?
It really was on the page in terms of what Ryan had written, and Ryan Coogler, and my job was just to try to inhabit the words as fully as I could.
You just directed a short film. What was the process moving from in front of the camera to behind?
It was a thrill. It was very educational. I'd produced a feature before, so I knew pre-production, and obviously being on set many times, I know physical production. the post-production and editing experience was, I would say, the steepest learning curve for me. That being said, I got to hire, when we're talking hire, people pulling favors, hire actors I know and love who I'd written for, crew that I'd gotten to work with in the past, people that I trust and know are extremely talented. So it was a blast.
Now that you're the director, are you more forgiving on the actor side? When you used to critique the directors, now that you're like, oh, now I know what they go through.
Absolutely, especially because I thought I could be directing them while I was in a scene with them, because I'm also in my short, and I learned a lot. That was humble pie right there.
And what does it mean to be the Sierraclub, honoring such artists and politicians that have done so much for the environment and social justice?
Yes, thank you to them is number one. We need to preserve the Earth because there's only one Earth. We've got these astronauts speaking to that point right now, underlining that this is a vital, vital planet we're on. And I personally have a connection to Sierraclub because my great-grandparents met on a Sierraclub outing, and I exist because of the Sierraclub. So I'm very grateful to be here tonight in honoring these incredible humans and all their work they've done.
So what does it mean for you tonight to be here at the Sierraclub, honoring such wonderful artists and politicians and their environmental justice?
It means so much to me. I am so inspired by people who are actually taking action to make this planet a better place, and no better than to see great examples who are also in the arts and music and other sorts of things of that nature that can help me see that there is a lane for every person to get involved, and also leaving it better for the future generations for us. It's really beautiful to see.
And how these artists and the politicians affect you as an artist yourself? How do you think you've incorporated their lessons into your art?
I think just with a better message for the world, instead of trying to produce something that is more of the ego based, something that a message that we can all kind of take forward, kind of going back into the John Lennon spirit of things, where making these albums kind of made a difference in what people were thinking, especially in this political climate and the world's actual climate. I think it's important that we leave a message rather than just something of ego.
Okay, so what does it mean for you to be here tonight at the Sierraclub, honoring such wonderful politicians and artists?
Yeah, I myself am an environmentalist. I'm a plant-based chef and cookbook author, and so I've dedicated my entire career to environmentalism, and I'm just so happy to be here and honored to be here in order to support the environment and everyone that is dedicating their lives and their careers to move the needle forward.
And also, if I'm correct, you link environmentalism and feminism a lot.
Yes.
What was that? How do you approach that?
And women's health. I think that the way that the government treats women in regards to women's health is exactly how they also treat the environment as well. And I think they're so interconnected. And I am someone that deals with endometriosis, and so I have been someone that has dealt with what that looks like. And so it's really important to me as a vegan, as a chef, and also a woman dealing with a chronic illness, that they all are connected.
When did you realize that you can merge your artistic voice with your environmental and justice voice?
I think I learned that very young, as a teenager, when I was doing street theater in New York City in Greenwich Village. We did a lot of environmental-themed plays, and then I read Bertolt Brecht, and he talked about theater being holding up a mirror to society, that we show society who they are and what they're about by play acting and letting the audience be self-reflective of themselves through the art of theater. So I've always tied it in. And I always look for film scripts and characters where it has something to say. It doesn't always have to be a do-good character. I love playing bad girls.
But does it help you as an artist having all these issues come out through character, though, not, in that kind of form?
It's very freeing. You can be all the things that Mama told me not to be.
And for you, what are you working on now, is from producing angle?
Yes, well, I'm producing a documentary about Afro-Cuban pianist Lico Jimenez, who was my great-grandfather, and we recorded all of his music and published it all for the Cuban classical world to hear and learn and magnify, and it's called LicoJimenez.com.
Thank you for joining our show. What is most important about trying to engage the youth of today on these issues?
I feel like the most important part of engaging young people today is that, the conversation is always what are we doing for future generations, and I just want to say that generation is here now and they're being impacted by decisions, and so they're ready to be leaders, and that it's up to adults and decision makers to give us young people a sincere response to what we want, because we're currently being impacted by their decisions. It's not something that we will experience in the future.
One of the biggest challenges is trying to balance the national issues, but sometimes more locally based, which might give people more confidence to actually solve. How do you approach those kind of balance?
Yeah, I mean, I think local organizing is the key, and that's where I started, and that's where I encourage young people to start, is to think about the way that they are interacting within their local community and with their neighbors and their friends, and then slowly build the community that they want to live in with their little circle and their sphere of influence, and then work their ways up to including more and more people into the movement, into the world that we want to live in.
And what it means tonight being at Sierraclub with so many wonderful artists and politicians who made such a difference.
It's the greatest honor and something that I definitely did not expect. So I'm super grateful, and it's super cool that the Sierraclub is valuing youth organizing and bringing in young people into their movement to lead the next efforts and next campaigns that we want to see.
How does it feel tonight being here at the Sierraclub honoring such wonderful politicians and artists?
It's amazing. It's my first time here, but I've done work in the past with Sierraclub. We're actually hosting an event with them this Saturday for LA Climate Week, so wanted to come out here and come support, and it feels really great to be a part of the buzzing energy of so many incredible leaders in the climate conservation space.
Now, I'm very curious about your initiative about green jobs and bringing youth into green jobs. How did that come about, and what is the mission?
Yeah, so, Green Jobs Board started actually as a post on my Instagram page, Brown Girl Green. I do social media and environmental communications online, and basically I was like, no one's talking about how to actually get a job. Like, everyone's like, get into activism, but people are like, I gotta pay my bills, I gotta find a job, how do I navigate that? And so I just decided to start my own resource series on Instagram, a weekly series. It went viral, it blew up, and basically, tons of companies and organizations were actually wanting to post, positions and opportunities with us and telling us, hey, we got our first intern, our first placement using your Instagram. And I was like, okay, this is a thing. And then, flash forward 3 years later, we have 200,000 people on our platform. We have, over 1,000 employers that utilize us for active recruitment. Wow. And we hosted summits every single year in New York City, and now bringing to LA and San Francisco, called the Green Jobs Pavilion, where we're actually connecting people in person. And so the initiative is not just, we're called Green Jobs Board, but we're so much more than that. We are, a new ecosystem for careers, thinking about recruitment, thinking about how job seekers are getting educated and finding avenues to activate, and then event series, actually bringing those groups together that are unlikely to maybe connect in other forums, and then producing content, storytelling online. I just launched a series called The Green Job Show, where I'm doing weekly series, kind of doing days in the life of, showing what does it look like to actually be in these industries, and why is this the time for young people to get involved with it.